Hi guys, this is Robert from theinsidesalesguide.com. Today we're going to talk about motivation and how motivation works. More specifically, I'm going to talk a little bit about extrinsic motivation and intrinsic motivation. So, of all of the ways that you can motivate people and all of the ways that motivates us, you can divide all of it into two different categories. One of them is the extrinsic motivation, and the other one could be the intrinsic motivation. Now, extrinsic motivation is basically everything that has to do with something that is not you. So that would be stuff that motivates you. It could be that you get a raise if you do a certain task. It could be that you get this dinner if you do a certain task, a better apartment, whatever, but external stuff that you could earn and that will motivate you to perform any given action. One of the best examples in business is obviously the commission structure that you have for salespeople in many cases, and other types of bonus programs where you try to pay somebody to deliver an even better result. The other part of that coin is the intrinsic motivation. The intrinsic motivation is what has to do with the person. And usually that is tasks where you are motivated by purpose, by learning new skills, by growing as a human, and everything that has to do with you as a person, and the way that you can grow as a person from doing anything. So every part of motivation that pushes you to do a certain task that you choose to do because it grows you as a person, teaches you new skills or anything like that, we would consider intrinsic motivation. Now, the reason I think it's interesting to talk about that is because the traditional attitude towards motivating people in businesses today has been extrinsic motivators, and it has been for many years. So we want our team to do more of X, so we throw money at it, lots of money, better performance structures, we pay them more, they do more. And that would probably work well if you're dealing with robots, but we're dealing with humans, and unfortunately we are a bit more complex, which means that in order to motivate your team successfully, you have to take into account the full spectrum of motivational factors that are present when we're dealing with people. So one of the studies I've read where they talked about this, the difference between extrinsic and intrinsic motivations, and basically tested it out, is a study where they, at a blood bank in Sweden, had two control groups. So the first control group they pulled in, they stood up, and they basically talked very much to the intrinsic motivators of everybody in that control group. So they talked about helping out your fellow countrymen, how giving blood would save lives of their fellow countrymen, speaking to their patriotism of being a Swedish citizen, etc., etc. So basically let them know that it was their civic duty to give blood if they had the opportunity to do so. So that was control group 1. In control group 2, they did all of the same things. So basically they stood up, they talked about all of these intrinsic motivators that should help or inspire these people to give blood. And then at the end of it, they said, and by the way, we will pay you 50 Swedish krona to give blood, which is awesome. You guys will earn money. So if we look at it with traditional business classes of we throw money at it, more people get motivated by doing it. This would mean that control group B, you would have significantly more people who actually donated blood. In this case, you had similar intrinsic motivation in both cases, and you had additional extrinsic motivational factors put into scenario number 2 or in control group number 2. So obviously control group number 2 should be the better performing group. It was not. So as you probably guessed, right? So control group number 2, actually only 30% of the people in that group ended up donating blood, whereas in control group number 1, 50% of the people ended up donating blood. So the group or the control group where you had only intrinsic motivational factors playing performed way better than the one where you had both intrinsic and extrinsic motivational factors playing in. And that is super, super interesting, I think. And the reason why I think is what is really interesting, because it turns out that as soon as you introduce extrinsic motivation into a system, it completely annihilates all intrinsic motivation. So if you have a group of guys or a group of girls who are super motivated by a higher purpose of saving the world and really making some changes, and you then afterwards tell them, and by the way, I will give you 100 kroner to perform this action, you completely kill the intrinsic part of the motivation. And basically you turn their head around, and the only thing they're doing is they're looking into, okay, so this action you want me to perform, do I want to do that for 100 kroner? And that becomes the calculation. So in this case, even though you had similar intrinsic motivation, in control group B, as soon as you introduced the 50 Swedish kroners, all of the intrinsic motivation went out the window. The control group basically forgot all about being patriots of the Swedish nation, of helping fellow Swedish people, and all of that intrinsic motivation that was in control group 1. And basically they only looked into, do I want to donate blood for 50 Swedish kroner? And a lot less people came to the conclusion that that would be a super good idea. So the reason I think this is super interesting for businesses is because I see a lot of businesses out there who are catching on to the having a higher purpose of running your business than just creating something that is profitable. But then on the other hand, I see the same businesses having equity-based performance structures for their management, having sales models and commission models for their salespeople, and all kinds of other extrinsically motivated systems in place to motivate people to do more. And it's quite important that you as a founder or startup guy, or even if you're sitting in any company, to know that if you spend a lot of resources trying to build a purpose with what you're doing, try to build a lot of motivation around the growth of people and learning new skills and a lot of other stuff, that goes straight out the window the second you look at people and say, and by the way, you're on a performance structure. We will pay you more money to do more. We don't want you to do more because you're motivated by it, because you can learn, because you believe that this company is going in the right direction or is doing something special in the world. We want you to do this because we pay you a bit more money, right? So that's the change that is there, and I think it's super dangerous, and I think we are wasting like tons of money and tons of time in doing this, because you're having a lot of companies these days that spend money on intrinsically motivated systems and actually believe that they can live next to extrinsically motivated systems. I don't believe that. And the data that I've seen and the science I've read about it shows inconclusively that you cannot. That's also one of the reasons at 24 Slides, where I am, we don't have commission models for salespeople. We don't have commission models for anybody, basically. We have a purpose with what we're trying to achieve. We're trying to help a lot of creative people in emerging markets have a whole different level of career that they could otherwise have. And everybody in this company believes and are working towards that. And we will completely destroy that by going in and giving people a little bit more money to perform a certain task. We believe much more that that type of motivation will push us much farther and get us there much faster. I'm going to talk a bit more about how we do in our sales department without a commission model, how it's structured, and it's actually working really well. And I'm looking very much forward to getting more salespeople in, so we can see how it develops. That's it for me. If you have questions, anything, please shoot me a comment and I'll get right back to you. Talk to you. See you. Bye.